when we turn it back on, it should heat up immediately. Behold, a box. So I was at my cousin Justin's house some weeks ago. We were talking about video games, and he gave me a story about he had to change his wife's power supply, and that he had the old power supply right here in this box. And being the drunk person that I am, thinking I can do anything when I'm drunk, I told him, I'll fix it. Well, reason sat in later on about how I shouldn't be putting in electrical components like this after fixing them when I'm a non-professional. But you know what? Maybe we can all learn from this. Maybe we can see why it's broken. He claimed that it smelled smoky, the wife's report. So maybe it will be obvious what is broken, visually obvious at least. If not, then we have some electrical testing tools around here, so I can poke and prod. We can see what's going on. Yeah. Oh. When in doubt, just start pulling on things. Woo! Give me a second here. So we got it apart. Got the fan out of the way. Just gonna let it sit here. For sake of getting views and an awesome thumbnail that has a fireball, I'd like to plug this up and see, if it'll turn on. For sake of views, how do you feel about that?
Wait, what?
Yeah, should we plug it in?
Plug it in?
Yeah.
I don't know. No.
But we will, right? Yeah?
No?
Yeah, we're gonna plug it in.
Why?
For the views.
Should I
Stand back?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I plug it in, you might want to. Girlfriend, you don't have to stand around the corner. Come here.
Did you turn it on?
Alright, here I'm gonna hit the switch. Oh god.
Don't die.
Okay. Now this thing doesn't go on. Here, you can come here for now. I'll show, so I can show you something. You hit the switch on, but this power supply won't turn on unless you have a signal from the motherboard. This plugs into the motherboard, and whenever you hit the power button on your computer, it closes the connection between two of these pins. Basically tells the power supply that it can turn on. It's a green pin on the clip side. There's a green pin, and to the right of it, there's a black one. We gotta connect these two. So on that side, it will be orange, blue, black, and green. The black and green will be connected together. Yeah, that should work. Okay, now there might be some sparks. Now you might want to move. Okay. Nothing. They did report that it wasn't working, so, claim confirmed. Well, yeah, it won't turn on. So now, so I don't kill myself, I'm gonna pull all these wires out. disconnect the power and you can come over here now. And we're going to take it apart a little bit more. I've looked around the board a bit, and I don't see any obvious signs of damage. And if there was smoke, there should be apparent signs of damage somewhere. There is also areas that I can't really see that well. But I can get this big board, the main board, off of the box and see what's going on underneath. Whenever we find something, it should be obvious because of the smoke. Do we see anything? Holy mother! Yes, an obvious suspect. Oh, this is it. See this thing? Mm-hmm. It is freaking wobbly. I can hear it grinding when I touch it. Mm-hmm. Holy fuck! It's dead. It is no longer part of this world. That's a good question, girlfriend. We gotta figure out what this is. I think it's a type of capacitor. Smells like sulfur. Let's see what the internet says about U1. U1 on a circuit board. Okay, RT1. That's better. Let's see what RT1 is. Thermistor. Okay, it is a thermistor. What kind of thermistor do I need for my power supply? So this here is exactly what's busted up on our power supply. God, I love Reddit. So, this printer stopped working. Trace the problem to the power supply. Anyone know what capacitor I need to get? So this guy's assuming this is a capacitor also. Well, I don't think I've seen this shape capacitor that's this big. The original poster Everdown made a post. I did order another power supply from Amazon while I waited on the thermistor. So this is a thermistor. So it's my main one now, but it was one component that blew up in the original one from Hicktop. I replaced the blown thermistor and the power supply is back in business. So I looked around for a wiring diagram of the power supply or the board that was on the power supply shown in photos here, and also notice this is not a Corsair power supply, it is a Rosewell power supply. I pieced together what blown up pieces we had from the thermistor, and I believe it is an NTC type thermistor, a 5D15, just like we show here on the computer. I don't have any, so I'm going to place an order for various thermistor sizes, and we'll continue this whenever it comes in. Alright, so we're back, and we got some replacement thermistors. I still believe, after looking at all the other bits and pieces that I could find, that this is the proper thermistor for this application. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this thermistor is part of the 120 volt alternating current incoming from this little board right here. This white line is one end of the 120 incoming alternating current. This goes into the board right about right here. and it distributes through these pins throughout the board whatever it wants to do its side of the wizardry. The other side of the 120 coming in is this black wire right here, and you can see it wiggling right here. It was part of the board that had melted on the thermistor. The thermistor used to be right here, just like this on the other side, flipped over. So the pins were coming in here and coming in here. This pin that you see right here that's still stuck in, this is remaining part of the thermistor. One of the legs that had stuck in. So when the 120 volt would come in through the black wire, it would go through the thermistor connection right here. They were connected right there. And it would go through the thermistor and into this other leg. And when it would come through here, out here, it would come to this fuse. Surprisingly, this fuse is not blown. Well, not too surprisingly. I have a theory as to why this blew, and I asked my cousin about some history behind it, and I'm waiting right now to get a text back from him. Hopefully, I am pretty confident this is going to work once we get it back together, as long as we don't reenact the incident that caused this to blow. Okay, so first things first is the remaining leg for the thermistor that comes in right here. We're going to melt this solder and take out the remaining piece. We're also going to melt the solder here that's holding in this black wire. Maybe clean everything up a little bit, maybe not. I'm feeling a little lazy today. Once that is done, we will clean up the black wire, send it back in here, put in our thermistor through the bottom. It's just going to come out through these holes. And we'll solder the black wire where it connected here to the thermistor. And then that will make the 120 AC flow from the black wire through the thermistor, out of the thermistor to the fuse the way it was doing it previously. We'll also solder in the other side of the thermistor to this little plating that's going to connect it to the fuse. Once that's all done, we should be able to power it back up, and I expect it to run. If this all works out, we're going to monitor it carefully, only plug it in when we're home, make sure it doesn't cause a fire, and I'll put it under a load where it's producing 12 5-volt DC power for some components I'm going to hook up over here, make it do some work, maybe even plug it into my own computer. And then if it's working after a period of time, we will probably turn it into some sort of small DC power supply box. I also have a thermal camera that we'll use to monitor the thermistor after we have it back in. Make sure it's not heating up too much. Make sure it's not going to blow itself again. So we got the 120 volt black wire cleaned out of its slot. We're going to clean this up a little bit, strip it back maybe a little bit. And we got the remaining parts of the thermistor out right here. And now we're going to put them all back in, solder them back together, and hope this thing works. It's going to be hard to use both my hands on the soldering equipment. So I'm just going to put my 120 black in here and bend it so it'll stay, maybe. And then I will take my thermistor bend this. Hopefully it'll stay. This is really hard.
It's not working.
No, it's gonna work. It's just really a pain in the ass. Especially when you're new to it. Alright, so this might be the shoddiest soldering job that I have ever seen anywhere. There are certain standards that people hold themselves toward, and I don't think this meets anybody's standards anywhere. I got my 120 volt coming in here, connected to one end of the thermistor, but it is totally dislodged from the board itself. The other end right here, soldered in really easily, and I think it's because this seemingly copper plate that goes from here to here on the board helps the solder make contact with the board. I think that the copper plate is missing right here, like it had relieved itself whenever it burned up, and it's missing. So I have no way for the solder to actually connect itself to the board. I'm not really sure that's something I can repair. But for the sake of me proving that I'm right, we're gonna still power this thing up and see if it actually works. We'll just never trust it past that. Alright, what pins did we say was supposed to go together here? Clip side. Ooh. Clip side. Black. And green. We got something happening here. So the thermistor we plugged in accumulates a lot of heat, but it seems to only accumulate heat on startup. Right now it's about 95 degrees. Let's turn it off real quick. And when we turn it back on, it should heat up immediately. Oh yeah. 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Turn it off again. Now, since the thermistor only heats up by about 10 degrees, well, it only heats up by 10 degrees, but it's only powering really a fan right now on the rest of this board. If it's turning on a computer, powering up a computer, it could heat up by a lot more. Maybe it could have been just sitting there, nobody was at home, and the power to the house was cycling multiple times. Every time you would apply the 120 volts to this board, it would heat up again. I wonder. Well, regardless, this is not something we can rely on, so we're gonna toss this board. I might salvage a few things off of it, maybe not for this video. And that'll be all for now. Thanks for watching.